So apparently the scrap shot is in the game. It's actually hiding down here in the collection book, and in my update video, I actually didn't even notice it and never actually mentioned it. Apparently it is now in the core llama pinatas, which are the base game llamas, the typical upgrade llamas, the stuff that you can buy from the shop. And also, I can't show this because I opened it, but I can show you what I got from my legendary troll truck llama in my collection book. I got the scrap shot bow, and I don't know if I got insanely lucky. I don't know if this is dropping for everybody. I would hope that if they added something new to the game like this, that they would make, you know, the next drop for everybody the scrap shot bow. But I think I might have just gotten really lucky that I just so happened to have a troll truck llama at the right time. But of course, if you want these, the way to get it is to either purchase llamas, buy ranged llamas, which please don't do, you guys. This is not a weapon that I'd recommend anybody dumping a bunch of V-Bucks into. I know it's new and you want to use it, but just wait. It'll come by. You know, you can see the X-ray. You can see what might be there. It'll probably, you know, at some point come up as a mission alert, so you can do a 4-player, and you can check that on sites like Fortnite DB and Free the V-Bucks. I'll link a couple of the sites that I use. If anybody has any recommendations, leave them in the comments below. RIP Storm Shield 1. But for now, that is exactly how to get it, and that is from these llamas. So unfortunately, you do have to get a little bit lucky, but here it is, the scrap shot bow. So typically scavenger weapons have a, you know, normal counterpart. I'm not sure which bow this is supposed to be that version of. I'm not sure if there is a base game bow that this thing is a cheaper version of. But as far as I can tell, it's an interesting combo. I think that this is a really effective mist monster killer for a low-level player who also happens to have Totally Rockin' Out. If you have all of those boxes checked, then I think this is a great weapon. If not, then it's another toy to play with. It does have damage to Slowed and Snared, and the Slowed and Snared 6 perk, which is a great combo. Not only is that extra damage on your second shot, but slowing down an enemy is really effective. I know a lot of you guys are asking me how to find mimics, and if you're in a forest, or I found this in a suburb zone, a good spot to find mimics is on top of these little ledges. It's not the only spot, but it's something that I found randomly, and you can tell that when you hit the mimic with a bow, it slows down. And if this was a smasher, it would be 30% slower, and, you know, it would be easier to kill him in that way. Of course, if you're using Stoneheart Fairy, you'll be able to double jump and everything, and that'll make it a much more versatile weapon, but that's one of the only good perks. Pros, I'll say, it has a very good drawback. It loads up that next shot very quickly. It has an okay reload at 1.3. I still would prefer a reload perk, but that would be at the cost of a second crit damage, which I did find necessary. I did try this with a reload crit rating crit damage build, and I was not impressed. It was hitting for about 85,000 damage per shot, which I know that I have blue perks, but trust me guys, gold would not make it that much higher. That's why I say this is a good early game bow, because in the late game, there are harder hitting weapons that do this job better, but in the early game, you know, if you're a level 50 or whatever, you're in Plankerton, you know, Candy, whatever you're doing, Stonewood, this would be a great weapon to pick up early and use against the Mist Monsters, and that's why I say Mist Monsters as well, because if you don't have Stoneheart Farah, then this has no area of effect damage. This will hit one single target, and that's it. You're not going to hit anything else beyond that, and even though it, you know, reloads kind of quick and it loads up the next shot nice and fast, it's not really going to be clearing out an encampment unless you have Stoneheart Farah or some other explosive device, and if you have some other explosive device, then I'm not entirely sure that you actually need the bow. And so for the best perks for this weapon, it kind of comes down to whatever you're using. I would say it's almost necessary if you're trying to use this in the end game to use double crit damage and maybe an extra damage here if all of your crit rating is coming from Totally Rockin' Out. However, I think a crit rating perk is certainly recommended here. Durability is a funny topic because scavenger weapons are cheaper and have less durability, which, as I've worked out in the past, does usually work out to where this is a much more affordable weapon than usual. You don't need to worry about that durability perk, I wouldn't say. I like to spec my weapons for all-around usability and, you know, damage more first and foremost. So crit rating or damage if you're running a Totally Rockin' Out build, and I don't usually like to use Totally Rockin' Out because, as I always say, it pretty much makes any weapon good. So I consider it a really bad indicator as to whether or not a weapon's actually decent, and that's why you don't see it in most of my reviews. But for this weapon, I thought it needed it, so that's why I spec'd it this way. As I said, I can actually head down over to my backpack here. I usually cut this part out, but you guys are sticking with me for this one. These are my two copies, so I basically swapped reload for crit damage, and I had to do that because the crit damage replaces reload. There's no other spot on the bow, but I really do think reload was a nicer perk to have, but, you know, I don't know that there's another way to do it. So now, if you don't want to run crit damage, crit rating, which I totally understand because you are basically relying on Totally Rockin' Out to make that a viable way to go, reload double damage would be a nice way to do this, especially in the early game, where you don't necessarily need a crit to kill everything, and you don't want to rely on crit damage to do a meaningful amount of damage. Then I would definitely point you towards the direction of reload double damage. Damage to soul insert down here is absolutely what you want. You could do another crit rating if you really want to up that crit damage, but I'm not entirely sure that it's necessary, and you really want to match that 6 perk. I mean, you don't want to take 2 shots per enemy, but you kind of will have to in most cases, so to have that 45% extra damage buff if you max this out will be a nice thing to have in my opinion. But of course you do have some options down here to have more flexibility, and from that, I think that just about covers it. So to sum it all up, reload double damage or even triple damage if you want to get rid of the slowed and snared, crit rating, double crit damage, slowed and snared if you're running totally rocking out, and then most likely the best, I'd say, all-around build would be to have a reload, crit rating, crit damage, which even I didn't really enjoy. So I think this is an early game weapon. I think it's a fun addition. I'm a little skeptical as to how they added it into the game. I already know that people are going to be spending lots and lots of V-Bucks just trying to get this new weapon, and it's a bit unfortunate because I'm not sure that this weapon warrants dumping all your V-Bucks. But that's it for this. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a nice day.